Okay then, before I start today's EmulationStation Desktop Edition 3.0.1, if you like what you see today, hit notifications, subscribe and like so you don't miss upcoming retro emulation content. Helps my channel a great deal, plus you get notified every time I release a new setup guide, which is almost every day. So we're looking at EmulationStation Desktop Edition 3.0.1, and I recently covered this as one of my personal favourite, for beginners that is, front-end system. So let's actually get into this. What we're going to do first is download the latest of this from the website. We're just going to go to download, and we're going to download this as Windows Portable. We've also got a Windows installer, so if you fancy installing this to your computer, go through the installation process. But I'm going to go for the Windows Portable, which means everything's going to be within one single folder rather than installing on my C drive. So I'm going to go download Windows Portable, and that's just going to download that. What we're also going to do is head over to RetroArch and download RetroArch 2. So around 85-90% of games through EmulationStation can likely be powered using RetroArch. There are instances where you're going to need separate standalone emulators to work with EmulationStation. So that's why in a minute I'm going to show you how to set up a standalone emulator, which is DuckStation, to work inside of EmulationStation. So for now we're just going to download the portable version to go along with the portable version of EmulationStation. So if I just scroll down, now we're going to have a few different options here. We got in store for 64-bit, 32-bit, 64-bit download, and a 32-bit version download. The differences are just here is that the installers are literally going to install to your computer, just like I mentioned a minute ago with EmulationStation, and the downloads are going to be portable versions. Now we got these numbers here, and some people can be a little bit confused sometimes what this means. So what we're going to do is just go to our search bar for this and type in system information, and we're going to find under system type a number, and in my case it says times 64. This tells me I've got 64-bit computer. If you've got a 32-bit, it's likely going to say times 86. So that's how we find out which bit we're going to be using. So I'm going to download the portable 64-bit version. So if I just left click, and we're just going to close this down, and that's going to now start downloading. Now I also mentioned we're going to be using a standalone emulator with this. So what we're going to do is go to DuckStation website and download for Windows. And we're going to download Duck. Now if you don't have Visual C++ installed, install this. What I'm actually going to do is just install this. If you don't install it, then it's unlikely DuckStation's going to open. So let's just download Visual C++ and get that installed a minute. So left click on that. And because I've already got this installed, I don't have an option here to install it. So what I'm going to do is just close this down. But if you don't have it, just press install and let it run through the installation process. Okay, so let's download Duck. Now that's also been downloaded. And next thing I'm going to use in this setup guide is a little program called CHDman. So we're using PlayStation, which is DuckStation, and mainly PlayStation games come in .bin and .q. Now CHDman is a little tool which converts those .bin and .q files into a single file called CHD. That's going to save space on your hard drive, and it's also going to get rid of all those irritating .bins and .q files. So we're just going to download CHDman. Okay, so that's everything for now, what we're going to download to use. So what we're going to do next is just minimize this, and we're going to take a look at these downloads. Okay, so on my desktop just here, I've got all 4 downloads I've just downloaded for this setup guide. First thing I'm going to open is ESDE, EmulationStation Desktop Edition. If I just open up this zip folder, inside of here, I've got my portable version of the front-end system. If I just drag and drop this onto my desktop, okay, so that's now been extracted, and what we can do is just close down this window, and I'm also going to delete that portable zip folder of EmulationStation. If I just drag and drop that to my recycle bin. Right, what we're going to do next then is just go inside of this folder And first thing we're going to need to do is just go into the emulators folder. It's empty at the moment. This is where our emulators are going to go, including RetroArch. So we got RetroArch just here, and I'm also going to drag and drop the RetroArch portable inside of that emulators folder. That's now been extracted, and again we can now delete that RetroArch archive. Next thing we've got is DuckStation. Now this is the standalone emulator. Like I say, in some cases we're going to need to use standalone emulators inside of EmulationStation. So again, this one, what we're going to need to do is just create a folder inside of EmulationStation Desktop Edition emulators folder. Go to new folder, and I'm going to call this one DuckStation. Now if I go back to the DuckStation portable folder just here, I'm going to press Ctrl and A, and that's going to highlight everything at once. If I then left click, I then drag and drop, I'm going to just drop those into the DuckStation folder. Okay, so if I just close that one down, and we're also going to delete that DuckStation zip folder as we've just extracted that one. So we're left with chdman, which is going to convert our .bin and .q files, but we're going to get onto that shortly. What we need to do first of all is just set up EmulationStation. So you're also going to notice there's no shortcut on the desktop. If you want to make a shortcut, ESDE.exe, if you just right click on it, show more options, and we're going to go to send to, and then desktop create shortcut. And there we go, on the desktop we can now easily access this. So let's actually just test out this shortcut works. If we open up EmulationStation. Okay, so first time we open up EmulationStation, what we need to do is set a directory for our games to go into. So you'll likely see a screen like this. No game files were found. I've replaced your games in the current configured ROM directory. So what we can do here is, if you want this to go into the default directory, we can leave it as B. If you want to change the directory for your games to be put somewhere else, which I'm going to show you how to do, just go over to, and what we're going to do is look inside the EmulationStation Desktop Edition directory. Now we got a ROMs folder here. What I'm going to do is just click inside of there, left click on the search bar at the top, and right click and copy. Now if we open up EmulationStation again, what we're going to do is change ROM directory. I'm going to press enter on my keyboard and backspace the directory which is there by default, and if I press Ctrl and V, and then I'm going to just go to enter, and we're now going to go to create directories and proceed, press enter and enter again, and if we then quit by pressing enter. Now if we go into the ROMs directory just here, or rather ROMs folder, we're going to find lots of different folders here, and this is where we can drag and drop our games or ROMs. Before we start adding our games and ROMs into EmulationStation, what we need to do first is actually download some cores in RetroArch. Now you remember a minute ago I dragged and dropped RetroArch into the ESDE emulators folder. We need to open up RetroArch now. And what we're going to do is download some cores. So once we drag our games inside of EmulationStation, they're actually going to be powered through this. So if we just scroll down to the bottom, open up retroarch.exe. Now what I'm going to do for now is just connect my Bluetooth controller. I'm going to be using an Xbox controller for this, and I'm going to just pair it to my computer. So what I'm going to do is just go down to search, and I'm going to type in Bluetooth, and you should see Bluetooth in other devices systems appear. And if I just go up to add device, I'm going to left click on Bluetooth, and then I'm going to just pair my Xbox controller with this, and we'll see Xbox appear. And here we go, Xbox wireless controller, just left click, connecting, and that's ready. So if I press done and just close out of settings, here we go then, so we're inside of RetroArch. What we're going to do first of all is just go down to settings and go to video, and we're going to go down to full screen mode, and if I press A on my Xbox controller, start in full screen mode. Oh, so we're now in full screen mode, and that just means when we open up a game through EmulationStation, it's going to boot directly into full screen rather than window mode, which is a little bit annoying. Okay, so if I press B on my controller to come out twice, what I'm going to do next then is actually download some cores. Now I'm going to be using Nintendo NES and Sega Mega Drive or Sega Genesis. So I need to download cores by going to Online Updater, press A, Core Downloader, press A. Okay, and here's our core list. So if you're new to RetroArch, what cores are essentially mini emulators which works with RetroArch. Everything here is in alphabetical order. So first of all, I'm going to look for Nintendo Entertainment System. If I just scroll down a bit more, the core I'm going to use is FCEUMM. If I press A, that's now been installed, so that's good to go. And we're also going to look for Sega Genesis. So if I scroll down, we got several just here to use. The one I'm going to use is Pico Drive. If I press A on this, and this one's going to support MS, which is Master System, GG, Game Gear, MD, Mega Drive, Sega CD, and 32X. If I then press B to come out, and B again, I'm then going to go down to Configuration File, and press A on this. Save current configuration, press A, and press B to come out, and then simply go down to Quit. Okay, so that's RetroArch setup, and we're going to move on to the standalone DuckStation setup soon. So what we're going to do now is just back out of here, back out again, and I'm going to go back to that ROMs directory. And in here, I'm going to start dragging some games in. So all of these you can see here is every platform that EmulationStation currently supports. So we're just going to scroll down until I find NES. Here's NES. And in each folder, you're going to find system info. If I just open this one with a notepad, it's going to give us some information. For example, what file extensions are supported in this system. So we got .3DZen, which is 3D Nintendo NES emulator, .zip, .nes, and so on. And each folder you go into will literally give you the same information. So this one, for example, NES supports .zip. So if I go into my NES folder, I've got 3 games here in .zip file extension. If I just copy those and paste them into my NES ROMs folder, and we've also got Mega Drive. So if I just scroll upwards, we're going to find Mega Drive just here. And again, if we go into system info, it's going to tell us what file extensions are supported. So we got everything just here. And just remember that we can also emulate Sega CD, but that's going to require BIOS. But anyways, I've got my Mega Drive games here, and these are in .md Mega Drive. If I just drag and drop those inside, and what we're going to do now is open up EmulationStation. And here we go. So we're inside EmulationStation. Nintendo, I've got my games here. And if we go to Mega Drive, I've got my 3 games here. What we need to do is actually set the default emulator once we're inside EmulationStation for each platform. So, okay, so what we're going to do is just scroll down to Other Settings, Alternative Emulators. And we got 2 of my systems here. We got Mega Drive and we got NES. If I press A, I'm going to select Pico Drive. And that's because I've just downloaded the RetroArch Core Pico Drive. Now that's set. If I press B to come out, let's just open and test one of these games. Press A. And there we go. We're straight into RetroArch powering this with Pico Drive. Cool, now I can exit this by pressing my Xbox button, and that's going to bring up RetroArch Quick Menu since we're using RetroArch. You can also access this menu by pressing F1 on your keyboard. What I'm going to do for now is just press B, and from here I'm going to just go down to Quit. And we're back into EmulationStation. Now what we need to do is actually funk this up so we can scrape some artwork. If I press Start again on my controller, which brings up main menu, I press A on Scraper, Now what I need to do is head over to Screen Scraper. It's a free website which you can sign up with. It's a simple case of just adding your credentials into this. So I'm going to scrape from Screen Scraper, which is likely the best database out there for artwork and preview videos. If I go down one to scrape these games, I'm going to just select all games. Scrape these systems is going to give us the option to scrape for both of my platforms I've imported so far, which is the NES and the Sega Mega Drive. If I press A on both of these and press back, account settings, and this is why I was saying you need to go over to Screen Scraper and make sure you're signed up. Just pop in your username, and then once you've done that, we're just going to go to back and press A. Content settings, we can here define what type of artwork we actually want. So for this, I'm going to just keep everything checked and download everything. Go to back, and we're going to go to start. This is then going to say scraping in progress, and this is going to start scraping all our artwork and preview videos. And since I selected Sega Mega Drive or Sega Genesis and NES, it's going to scrape the lot for me. And there we go, 6 games successfully scraped. If I press OK on this and press B to come out, and again, we've now got artwork for each of my platforms that I've imported so far. Okay, so I've set up the default emulator, which is going to be RetroArch for Mega Drive, but I've not done Nintendo NES yet. So if I press start on my controller, again, to do this, go down to other settings, alternative emulators, and right now it's using Meson, which we don't have installed. So I'm going to press A on this, and the RetroArch core I've used is the FCEUMM. If I press A and back out by pressing B, and again, now I'm going to open up one of these games. I'm going to go for Simpsons. And again, by pressing my Xbox button or F1 on your keyboard, just press B, and then we can go to quit. Cool, so for now, let's just start adding a standalone emulator. So to quit out of EmulationStation, I'm going to press start, and then just head down to quit ESDE, press A. And really quit, yes, press A. Okay, so next up, we're going to add a standalone emulator. So obviously we can use SwanStation within RetroArch, but this is just going to show you how to set up your average standalone emulator. Like I say, EmulationStation and RetroArch doesn't support everything through RetroArch. So we're going to go back into the ESDE folder, emulators, and this is where I dragged my DuckStation standalone emulator earlier. If I go inside of here, we're going to open up DuckStation. If I go to more info, run anyway. Okay, so first things first, what we need to do is actually add a little directory so it can scan our games, and we're also going to need some BIOS files. So first of all, what we're going to do is take a look at the file extensions that we're going to need for PlayStation. We can see .q here, .iso, .ecm, .chd. So what we're going to do is just close out of this completely, and we're going to go back to CHDman, which I downloaded earlier. Like I say, link's going to be in my description. If we open this is in a zip folder. We're going to just create a new folder, and we're going to just call this CHDman. If we extract the contents of that CHDman zip folder inside of that created folder I've just done, so that's now extracted, and we just delete the chdman.zip. We no longer need this one. Now, in order to convert our games into CHD, what we need to do is actually place them into where your games are. So in my PSX folder just here, I've got the game Skull Monkeys, which is a very cool 2D platformer for the PS1, very underrated as well. Now in here, this is only a small game. I've got .bin and .q. Some PlayStation 1 games will have lots of bin files and one Q file. So what I'm going to do to start converting this into CHD is go into my CHD folder, and I'm going to make a copy of chdman.exe as well as the file next down. So Q, GDI, ISO to CHD bat. If I copy both of these into that School Monkeys folder, and here we go. So the reason I've done that is because we can actually use these over and over again if we just make copies of them. So in order to convert this, we're just going to double left click on the .bat just here. And this is then going to start compressing the contents of .bin and .q into a CHD file. So some games are going to take longer than others, but like I say, School Monkeys isn't particularly a big game. Okay, and once that's finished converting, the terminal will just close down. And what we can do now is just highlight all of those contents, and I'm going to delete everything apart from the .chd, which has just been created. If I delete everything, and here we go, this is what we're left with. So I'm going to make a copy of this and just put it into my main PSX folder. I'm now going to delete School Monkeys. And what we're going to do then, first of all, is actually connect this along with the BIOS files for DuckStation. So I've got PSX BIOS just here, and here's my BIOS files. So what I'm going to need to do is go back into ESDE. And to make things a bit more neater, I'm going to go back into emulators, DuckStation, and I'm going to drag and drop my PSX BIOS folder inside of the same folder here, DuckStation. So like I say, everything's together. Now if we open up DuckStation again, what I'm going to do is add game directory. If I left click, we're now going to search for where the game is. So it's obviously on my desktop, and I'm going to look for the PSX folder, and here it is. If I just left click on that and select folder, and I'm going to press yes on this part, and here's the game now imported into DuckStation. We're also going to need to add some BIOS files for this, so I just placed the BIOS files inside of that DuckStation folder. So to do this, I'm going to go to Settings, BIOS, and from here what I'm going to do is just link this up to where my BIOS files are located. So if I go to Browse, my BIOS files are inside of my DuckStation folder, which is in the ESDE folder, and it's in Emulators, DuckStation. And what I'm going to do is left click on PSX BIOS and select folder. And what I'm going to do next is just go to close. Now if we open up the game School Monkeys outside of EmulationStation to ensure everything's working, if I double left click on this, okay, cool. So as we can see, everything's working. There's no sound on it. I've disabled the sound. But we need to configure controllers. Of course, DuckStation being a standalone isn't going to be possible to configure inside of EmulationStation. So we need to do this outside of EmulationStation. So first of all, I'm going to go to settings for this. And we're just going to go down to audio for now. And first of all, I'm going to just uncheck mute all sound. So we've actually got sound. Next thing I'm going to need to do is actually configure a controller to work in this. So again, I'm going to go to Settings and Controllers. And because I'm using an Xbox controller, I'm going to enable X input source. If I then go down to Controller Port 1 Analog Controller, I'm going to leave this to Analog Controller, and we can now start mapping out controller. So for example, if I left click on D-pad up, I can then press up on my Xbox D-pad and so on. But as you can see, everything is already pre-configured in DuckStation for me. So if I just close this down, and we can actually make PlayStation games look really amazing. So for example, if I go to Settings and just go down to Graphics, from here internal resolution is going to be 1x native for you if this is your first time using DuckStation. I can actually boost this up to 4K and beyond, but it's going to be very wearing on your hardware, so even if you can get this to say 720p, it's pretty beneficial. We also got other things to play around with here. Aspect ratio. So of course, PS1 games would traditionally be in 4:3, which is the screen with the black bars on the side. We can turn this into 16:9 or stretch to fill. I'm going to just put this on 4:3 so it's as close to the original ratio as possible. And we got various different other video settings here. Now, if you're interested in DuckStation, I recommend you checking out my DuckStation full setup guide, and that will get you some very awesome looking graphics for your old PS1 collection. So for now, everything's set up in here, and we're going to go to close. And if I just close out of DuckStation, and we're going to go back into the EmulationStation folder and back into ROMs. So I've imported this game into DuckStation itself, so you can use it as a standalone outside of ESDE. But we also need to put a copy of the games into the PSX folder just here. So I'm going to grab my game and just make a copy of that because this is already linked up now with DuckStation. And if I just paste my game inside of that ROM's PSX folder, this time we're going to open up ESDE. And here we go. So we got PlayStation 1994, and if I go inside of here, let's just scrape some artwork. So press start, main menu, scraper, scrape these systems. I'm only going to select Sony PlayStation because I've already scraped Nintendo and Sega Mega Drive. Press back. And since my screen scraper ID and password are already in, we're going to go to start. Okay. And what we're going to do is also change the emulators to ensure that it's going to be working with DuckStation. So main menu again by pressing start. Other settings, alternative emulators and PSX. And I'm going to go down to DuckStation standalone, press A. And B to come out, B again and again. And let's open up School Monkeys. Now, as you can see, this hasn't opened in a full screen mode. So to do this, we're going to go to Settings, Graphics, Interface, and Start Full Screen. If I then go to Close, and just close out of here, and open it up again. And here we go, it's now booting in full screen. And there we go, so all three systems are now up and running, RetroArch as well as a standalone emulator. We can also customize the look of EmulationStation. If we go to main menu and go to UI settings, that's user interface settings, press A. Theme downloader, press A. And proceed, press A. It's going to generate a list of different themes we can download. And you've got a lot here to choose from. There are some really good themes in EmulationStation. CoinOps is a very good one. Personally, I like Epic Noir Revisited, so if I press A on this one, it's going to download that theme. And if I press B to come out, and if I then drop down to theme, here's my theme I've just downloaded. So if I press A on this and press B to come out, and again, and here we go. So obviously each theme you use are going to have different art layouts. So if I go into, say, PlayStation, and if I press left or D-pad, once I'm inside of a system, I can actually scroll across and see different systems I've got. Okay, so everything's up and running, and what I'm going to show you next is actually how to funk up your games once we're playing them. So if I go into, say, Sega Mega Drive, and what I'm going to do is just open up a game. I'm going to go for Shadow of the Beast. Okay, before I start going any further with this, let me just make you aware that this is only the RetroArch element of this. If you want to enhance anything else through standalone emulators, then it's going to be a different process entirely. But like I say, 85–90% of games running through EmulationStation are going to be powered through RetroArch. So let's take a look at some stuff just here. What we're going to do is just go to Online Updater. And remember, I'm pressing B to come out of options, and I'm pressing A to select on my Xbox controller. If we just go down, scroll down, and we're going to scroll down to overlays first. If I press A on this, downloading, and now extracting overlays. I'm also going to drop down one to update slang shaders. If I press A on this one, so what overlays is going to do is replace those black sides, and it's going to put some in place, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And your slang shaders are going to give us the ability to use some very awesome features through RetroArch known as Mega Bezels. So what we're going to do is just come out of here, and now that I've downloaded and extracted, what I need to do is just go to quick menu, and if I then scroll down, I'm going to go down to on-screen overlay. If I press A on display overlay, turn this on. Overlay preset, I'm going to go inside of here by pressing A. And now I'm going to go down to borders and press A on this one, and we got a selection here of different borders or overlays. If I press A to go in Mega Drive and press A on Mega Drive _animated_ border, press A. And if I come out by pressing B, quick menu, A, resume A. And as you can see, that's now applies to overlay. So we can actually change the overlay, but something even better is Mega Bezels. So to do this, from the quick menu, we're going to now go to on-screen overlay and just disable this by pressing A. And then if we just go down a little bit further, we got shaders. If we turn this on by pressing A, from here what we can do is go to load preset, press A, and I'm going to go to my shaders _slang folder. And from here, we can really funk some stuff up. But before we do this, using Mega Bezels, which I'm about to show you, we need to set up the video, because Vulkan is only going to be the option really for the best experience. So to do this, what we're going to do is just back out and back right out, and from the main menu, we're going to just drop down to settings, video, and from here, output, I'm going to change video to Vulkan. Now, if you find Vulkan doesn't work for this on your computer, just use another one such as GL Core, but it's either Vulkan or GL Core which works best for this. So what we're going to do is go back to quick menu, and we're going to go all the way back down to shaders, load preset, shader slang, and we're going to go to bezel. Now we got two folders here, two different things really, but if we just go to Mega Bezel folder, presets, now you're going to notice there's lots of numbers here. So what this is telling you, the zeros are going to be the most hard wearing on your hardware, whereas if you go up to say number 5, it's going to be least wearing on your hardware. So for example, if I go to something like MBZ, which is Mega Bezels, STD glass, if I press A, it's going to take a little while for this to process. Okay, and for the best effect for Mega Bezels, that is, we also need to set it to full screen. So if I come out, and out again, this time I'm going to go to settings, video, I'm going to go down to scaling, and from here I'm going to go to aspect ratio and just make sure this is on full. Now if I go back into the game, And as you can see, that looks pretty awesome, complete with a scan line. So the trick is to keep it to Vulkan or OpenGL or GL Core, that is, if it's not working for Vulkan. And just select your shader by going to load preset. You also need to save this, otherwise if you boot up the game again, then it's going to lose those settings. So we're going to save the current preset, and we're going to save core preset, so this applies to pick a drive only. If we go to save global preset, this is going to save the same video settings for all your cores. So save core preset. And it might seem like it's got stuck, but just give it a good few seconds and eventually that will save. Okay, shader preset saved successfully. So what we're going to do now is just back out of this game. So from main menu, we're just going to scroll down and finally just go to configuration file and save current configuration and quit. Okay, now if I open up another game, Sonic 3. And as you can see, that's now got the same video settings. And just remember, we can use several different Mega Bezels here. So it's just a case of going down to shaders, load preset, shaders_slang, and you've got many different folders here. So it's not just Mega Bezels, but I do like Mega Bezels, and we got different options here to use in Coco. Presets 4.1, and there's so many here to use. For example, if I was to use something like TV base, if I go back into the game, and you will initially find that when you're applying these shaders, they might appear to get stuck, but it takes a little while for it to process. We also got other shaders here to use, and I'll always show people this one. I think this is a really cool shader, Technicolor. If we come out, so really, in terms of Mega Bezels, that type of thing, it's really a case of just experimenting with what this has got to offer. If I go back down to Mega Bezel, presets, I'm going to go into base CRT presets, and we got loads more to use inside of here. So just randomly, I'm going to choose this one, Smooth Advanced Glass. And just remember to save, otherwise you're going to do all these settings, and then when you boot up your game again, everything's going to be gone. So just make sure save core preset or save global preset if you want the same video options applied to all your systems using RetroArch. Now if I go back into the game, and we can actually apply overlay as well from quick menu. So we're going to go to on-screen overlay, turn this on. If we go back into the game, and as you can see, the Mega Drive or Genesis overlay is now applied. We can actually make that overlay a lot thicker, as fairly transparent. If we go back to on-screen overlay, go down to overlay opacity, and beef this one up to 1.00, go back into the game. And as you can see, the overlay is now thickened up. It's not so transparent. Just remember to save everything you do. So next up, what I'm going to do is just quit out of here. And finally, I'm going to show you how to use cheats. So again, just like Mega Bezels and no shaders, we can only do this using RetroArch cores. It's going to be a different circumstance for standalone emulators. If I just open one of my NES games, I'm going to go for Turtles. Okay, so we're looking at cheats now, and again, this is fairly simple to do. So when you're RetroArch quick menu, we're just going to go and find Online Updater. From here, we're going to find Update Cheats. If I press A on this is going to take a little while to extract, so be patient with this bit. Okay, so once it's a bit extracted, we're going to actually apply a cheat to the Turtles game I'm playing. So I'm going to go to Quick Menu, and if I then scroll down, I'm going to find cheats. If I go in here, first thing I need to do is apply after toggle. If I press A, and we're then going to go down to Load Cheat File Append, and you're going to find lots of folders here. So we're looking for Nintendo Entertainment System. If I press A, here's a complete list of pretty much every Nintendo NES game. So everything's in alpha order. What we're going to do is just look for that Turtles game. And we should find several different files here, including a Game Genie cheat file. And here's our Turtles section. So the one I used for this on my previous RetroArch tutorial, I think it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles USA.cht. If I press A on this, what I'm going to do next is just drop down, and here's all our cheats for this particular game. So you're going to have lots of different cheats for various different games. But for example, if I was to put something like Turtle Modifier on, to enable this cheat in the game, I'm going to press A on Enabled. And we got various different cheats here, like I say. So Untouchable, Enabled, turn this on. One kills ordinary enemies, enable this. Enemies and projectiles are frozen in place, and turn that on. Now what I need to do is just scroll all the way back up, and I'm going to go to Apply Changes, press A. Now if we go back into the game, and as you can see, awesome. Whilst I'm in Quick Menu, I'm also going to remind you we can actually save in load states here. So if I just go down to Save States, State Slot, I'm going to keep the 0. We got 1,000 slots here. If I go to Save State, and if I go back to the Quick Menu by pressing the Xbox button, go to Load State, press A. And there you can see it's loaded back where I just saved it from. And that's it for today's EmulationStation Desktop Edition 3.0.1 edition. So if you liked today's video, hit notifications, subscribe and like. Also check me out on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and TikTok. And be sure to check out my other front-end guides. I do a hell of a lot on my channel, and I've also done several different setup guides now for ESDE itself. But anyways, until next time, stay retro.